Long before European explorers set foot on American soil, a vibrant and diverse tapestry of indigenous cultures thrived across the continent. For thousands of years, Native American tribes developed sophisticated societies with unique traditions, languages, and beliefs. From the Pueblo people of the Southwest, known for their impressive cliff dwellings and advanced irrigation systems, to the nomadic tribes of the Great Plains, who relied on buffalo for sustenance and survival, Native Americans lived in harmony with nature and forged deep connections to their ancestral lands. Theirs is a story of resilience, adaptation, and a profound spiritual connection to the land. These early inhabitants were skilled hunters, gatherers, farmers, and artisans. They possessed a deep understanding of the natural world, and developed complex systems of governance, trade, and spirituality. Theirs was a world rich in oral histories, passed down through generations, preserving their cultural heritage and shaping their understanding of their place in the world. While their stories often go untold in traditional historical narratives, it is essential to recognize and honor the enduring legacy of Native Americans as the original inhabitants of this land. The arrival of Christopher Columbus in 1492 marked a turning point in the history of the Americas, forever altering the course of both indigenous populations and the European powers that sought to claim this new world as their own. It is crucial to remember that America's story did not begin with European arrival. Rather, it is a continuation of a much older and richer narrative, one that deserves to be told and understood in all its complexity. The arrival of Christopher Columbus in 1492 ushered in a new era in American history, one marked by both exploration and significant change. This momentous event set the stage for centuries of European involvement in the Americas, fundamentally altering the course of history for the continent and its indigenous peoples. European powers, eager to capitalize on the riches of this new world, established colonies and embarked on a period of rapid expansion. They were driven by the promise of wealth, new resources, and the opportunity to spread their influence across uncharted territories. The Spanish, driven by the pursuit of gold and silver, established settlements in South America, Mexico, and the Caribbean. Their conquests were marked by the search for precious metals and the establishment of vast colonial empires. Meanwhile, the English, French, and Dutch sought to establish footholds in North America. Each of these European powers had their own motivations and strategies for colonization, leading to a diverse array of settlements and interactions with the native populations. The clash of cultures between European colonists and Native Americans had devastating consequences for indigenous populations, who faced displacement, disease, and warfare. The arrival of Europeans brought about profound changes to the lives and societies of Native Americans. The English colonies, established along the Atlantic coast, developed distinct regional identities shaped by their unique geographic and economic circumstances. These differences would later influence the political and social dynamics of the emerging nation. The New England colonies, founded by Puritans seeking religious freedom, developed a strong tradition of self-governance and a focus on agriculture, fishing, and trade. Their communities were characterized by a sense of purpose and a commitment to their religious ideals. The Middle colonies, with their fertile soil and diverse populations, became centers of commerce and agriculture. These colonies were known for their cultural diversity and economic vitality, attracting settlers from various backgrounds. Meanwhile, the southern colonies, with their reliance on slave labor, developed plantation economies based on cash crops like tobacco, rice, and indigo. The use of enslaved Africans became a cornerstone of their economic system, shaping the social and economic structures of the region. These regional differences would later play a significant role in the political and social landscape of the newly formed nation. The distinct identities and economic interests of each region contributed to the complexity of early American society. The colonial period was marked by both cooperation and conflict. While there were moments of mutual benefit and collaboration, tensions often escalated into violence and strife. European colonists relied on Native Americans for trade and knowledge of the land, but also engaged in territorial disputes and warfare. These interactions were complex, and often fraught with misunderstanding and conflict. The introduction of European diseases, such as smallpox and measles, had a devastating impact on Native American populations, decimating entire communities and disrupting traditional ways of life. These diseases spread rapidly, causing widespread mortality and suffering. As European settlements expanded, so too did the demand for land and labor, leading to the forced displacement of indigenous peoples and the growth of the transatlantic slave trade. This period saw the beginning of a dark chapter in human history, marked by the exploitation and suffering of countless individuals. The transatlantic slave trade brought millions of Africans to the Americas in chains, where they were subjected to brutal conditions and forced labor. This system of slavery would have lasting repercussions on the social and economic fabric of the Americas, shaping the history of the continent for generations to come. As the 18th century progressed, tensions grew between Great Britain and its American colonies. The colonies, which had enjoyed a degree of autonomy, began to chafe under the increasing control and taxation imposed by the British Crown. The British government, burdened by debt from its involvement in the French and Indian War, imposed a series of taxes on the colonies, including the infamous Stamp Act and Townshend Acts. These measures were intended to raise revenue but instead fueled resentment. This sparked outrage among colonists who believed they were being taxed without representation in Parliament. The idea that they should have a say in how they were governed became a central issue. The cry of no taxation without representation became a rallying cry for colonial resistance, uniting people from different colonies and backgrounds in a common cause. As colonists organized boycotts of British goods and formed protest groups like the Sons of Liberty, the movement for independence gained momentum. Events like the Boston Tea Party, where colonists dumped British tea into the harbor, symbolized their defiance. The escalating conflict culminated in the outbreak of the American Revolution in 1775, with the battles of Lexington and Concord. These skirmishes marked the beginning of a full-scale war for independence. Colonial militiamen, fighting for their liberty and independence, faced off against the might of the British Army in a long and bloody conflict. The war would test the resolve and endurance of the American people. The colonists, led by George Washington, faced numerous challenges, including shortages of supplies, internal divisions, and the military superiority of the British forces. Washington's leadership and the determination of the colonial forces were crucial to their eventual success. On July 4, 1776, the Continental Congress, meeting in Philadelphia, took a bold step, declaring the 13 colonies independent from British rule. This declaration was a monumental act of defiance and hope. The Declaration of Independence, penned by Thomas Jefferson, proclaimed that all men are created equal and endowed with certain unalienable rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These words would resonate through history. This document, a testament to the ideals of self-governance and individual freedom, has served as a beacon of hope and inspiration for generations of Americans and people around the world. Its principles continue to influence democratic movements globally. The American Revolution was a watershed moment in world history, marking the birth of a new nation founded on the principles of liberty, equality, and self-government. The struggle and sacrifices of the colonists laid the foundation for the United States. The victory of the American colonists inspired revolutions and independence movements around the globe, proving that it was possible for a people to break free from colonial rule and forge their own destiny. The American Revolution's legacy endures, reminding us of the power of unity and the enduring quest for freedom. Following the Revolutionary War, the newly formed United States embarked on a period of westward expansion, driven by a belief in manifest destiny, the idea that it was America's God-given right to expand its dominion across the continent. Pioneers, settlers, and adventurers pushed westward seeking land, opportunity, and a fresh start in the vast territories beyond the Appalachian Mountains. This westward expansion, while fueled by the promise of progress and prosperity, came at a heavy cost as Native American tribes were displaced from their ancestral lands and forced onto reservations. The expansion was not just a physical movement, but also a cultural and ideological shift, reshaping the American identity. The issue of slavery, a deeply divisive issue since the nation's founding, cast a long shadow over this period of expansion. The southern states, economically dependent on slave labor for their plantation economies, fought to preserve the institution of slavery as new territories were incorporated into the Union. Abolitionists in the North, fueled by moral outrage and a belief in the inherent equality of all people, condemned slavery as a moral abomination and fought for its abolition. The Underground Railroad, a network of secret routes and safe houses, was established to help enslaved African Americans escape to free states in Canada. The tensions between the North and South over slavery reached a boiling point in 1860 with the election of Abraham Lincoln, a Republican opposed to the expansion of slavery, as President of the United States. Lincoln's election sparked a secession crisis as 11 Southern states seceded from the Union, forming the Confederate States of America. The American Civil War, a brutal and bloody conflict that pitted brother against brother, erupted in 1861 with the Confederate attack on Fort Sumter in South Carolina. The war would last 4 long years, resulting in immense loss of life and widespread destruction. The Civil War was a defining moment in American history, testing the very fabric of the nation and the principles upon which it was founded. The Union victory in 1865 preserved the Union and ended the institution of slavery, paving the way for a new era of freedom and equality for all Americans. The legacy of slavery and the Civil War continues to shape American society today as the nation grapples with issues of race, equality, and social justice. The echoes of this tumultuous period remind us of the ongoing struggle to fulfill the promise of liberty and justice for all.